Welcome to Quality Impact, a podcast from the Chartered Quality Institute. I'm your host, Rashad Issa, Chairman of the CQI. Today we welcome Victoria Derbyshire, Quality Manager at Cavendish Nuclear and the youngest CQI trustee, and Sam Boniface, Head of Quality and Pump Parts and Retrofits at Sulzer, who will join me in discussing the pros and cons of apprenticeships. We will also discuss the challenges of success within quality at a young age and why you're never too old to do an apprenticeship. Thank you very much for joining me for this Quality Impacts episode. Today's episode is about apprenticeship. So before I dive deep into it, Sam, what is an apprenticeship?
So an apprenticeship is all about combining hands-on training with traditional classroom learning. So you gain practical experience whilst developing specific skills that go alongside that. And it's completely blended learning. So you finish your apprenticeship as a well-rounded individual within whatever field you've chosen.
So throughout my entire career, I've not done an apprenticeship myself, but I've always found that when you introduce a new process or a new system, that people respond to that learning activity slightly differently, depending on their style of learning. And it's amazing to see how much more impactful that blended learning that you mentioned, which brings in hands-on experience, hands-on practicality in addition to the theory that goes behind it. Have you done an apprenticeship yourself, Sam?
I have, yes. I've studied towards 3 different apprenticeships across various different things throughout my career, from my first ever role, which was an apprentice mechanical fitter, all the way through to completing a degree level apprenticeship in materials technology.
I know we're going to talk about your apprenticeships that you've covered, but I'd like to start with Vic. Vic, I'm really excited for this conversation. You are our youngest CQI trustee, and you've gone through an apprenticeship yourself. Why don't you share with us your journey, your career journey, and how did you get to where you are today?
So I never enjoyed school. I would go as far to say that I hated it. Don't get me wrong, I performed well. I never really struggled, but the classroom environment was not for me. It was not where I performed at my best. And I was so keen to get involved in that kind of practical space, go out, learn, work and earn a bit of money as well. And the apprenticeship route naturally lends itself to that. So I remember looking for apprenticeships a lot when I left school and I was in college, and at the time university was seen as the main route, and you only pursued an apprenticeship if either you were less capable, less intelligent, and that sounds horrific to say, but that is the message that we received at the time. So in the end, I was in my second year of college and I had just had enough. I had a rubbish day. I got home, I went, right, I'm going to find an apprenticeship. So I went on the government website, scrolled through all apprenticeships, and then there was Apprentice Quality Professional, New Year UK, which was one of the first quality apprenticeships in the nuclear industry at the time. And I read it and I thought, you know what, that aligns with all of my values, my personality. It sits across multiple disciplines in the organisation, which is great because I never really knew what I wanted to do when I grow up, so to speak, and I still don't, but quality definitely works for me. So I thought, you know what, fine, I'll get an application in and I'll see where we go from there. And then I went through the assessment centre with 5 other college and school leavers at the time, and the assessment centre was actually a workshop on what is quality, which was so useful because quality is not taught at school. I wanted to know what I was signing up for, but it really did just reinforce that this is actually what I want to do. And I remember getting the offer and my mum saying, but you're so close to finishing your A-levels, why would you throw all that away? And, in the end, I decided to take the risk, and I've never looked back. It really did show me that there was something out there for me, something that looks across all areas of an organisation and actually gives me that balance of practical doing, but with the theory and classroom learning.
That's a remarkable journey, Vic. And I know we work closely together as well. So I definitely see your passion and dedication around quality and doing things right, as you've defined it early on. You did mention about the perception of that used to be communicated in the past, and that is truly a heartbreaking
It
perception
is.
to have. It can be so damaging because I also come from a culture where academia is always placed on that pedestal.
Mm.
And you think, I don't necessarily disagree. People who want to go down with academia, good, that's a great path. But the message that cultures bring, where academia is the only path, is where I really struggle with, because it is not, and that's a fact. It is not the only path. And it's nice to hear that somebody took the risk and did the research, understood where they wanted to go, and just jump straight in.
Yeah, absolutely. People recognise now that the apprenticeship route is absolutely a valid and good option. So, for example, people who are neurodivergent, some thrive in a classroom environment, some don't. But having the apprenticeship route as just for the people who do bad at school, it just closes off so many doors. I know people who are neurodivergent and they absolutely thrive in that hands-on problem solving environment, and actually they demonstrate that because they are in an environment that brings the best out of them, they can achieve the same heights as what would be classed as traditional sort of back in the day when it was university or nothing. So I think we've come an awful long way, and it's so nice to see so many more apprenticeships being offered now.
And the flip coin is also true. Not everybody that does well in a classroom environment through academia necessarily does well in operations and when putting that theory into practice. So again, that demonstrates it's really a two-way stream, and it's not one size fits all.
Absolutely.
Sam, Vic talked about the availability of quality apprenticeships now. That's a lot more than what it used to be a few years back. And with now getting to a stage that we understand people have different learning styles, and some people do actually prefer hands-on learning, would it be fair to say that apprenticeships are ageless?
Yeah, without a doubt, they're ageless, and they're really coming into their own now, I feel. And I had a similar experience to Victoria, where when I was at school, apprenticeships were definitely branded and modelled as what you do if you're not academic. If you're not really excelling in every subject, then you do an apprenticeship. If you are, you go on to university and do all these other fantastic things. But I think really that mindset is changing now, and a lot more people are offering apprenticeships across the board. But also, it's more of an open environment for everyone. Everyone knows what an apprenticeship is. Everyone's discussing them. And that's really changed a lot recently, which is fantastic. Now, when I look at my own career and how I started, so similar to Victoria, I wasn't what you'd say was traditionally academic. I enjoyed school. I did well in some areas, not so well in other areas. But one area where I really excelled at school was within engineering. And I was lucky enough that my school offered engineering as a BTEC at the time. So I took that. I did 2 years of engineering at school before I even had to start thinking about what I wanted to do from thereafter. And that really helped me move into the apprenticeship mindset. And at the time, I was fortunate that a guy called Jimmy Shaw, who was at the time the apprentice supervisor at Sulzer, actually came into my school and helped us build a robot for the school version of Robot Wars. And that was fantastic. Like, it was brilliant to build it and brilliant to get involved with, and sort of working with Jimmy was fantastic. But really what it taught me, if I'm honest, was that, the whole Robot Wars thing was fantastic and building it. And we didn't do particularly well, but that didn't matter to any of us, really. What really stood out was actually if we all worked together and put everything we're learning into practice, and really, everything we've learned put into this robot, it came off pretty well, and it taught me a lot of things. And that really got me involved with apprenticeships and wanting to go down the apprenticeship route. So from school, I took on a 4-year advanced apprenticeship in mechanical fitting. So I did first year full-time at college, learning various different things from health and safety, a bit of metallurgy in there, but really building a foundation to move on with into my career. And then from there, I did a further 3 years of day release, 1 day at college, 4 days in the workplace at Sulzer, which again was fantastic. I was moving around the departments. I did, for example, 6 months in machining, 6 months in welding, 6 months in mechanical fitting. And that developed a lot of hands-on skills and experience that I didn't yet know, but I managed to back that up with the theory that goes behind it. And that's really why this blended learning style of apprenticeships is fantastic. And alongside that, within those 4 years, I built fantastic relationships and sort of got to network with a lot of people. So I really developed within those 4 years of my apprenticeship, going from somebody who wasn't academic, didn't really know what they wanted to do, probably lacked a bit of self-confidence and self-belief, to finishing that apprenticeship 4 years later, loads of new skills, loads of new people that I knew, and a newfound sort of self-confidence, I suppose.
That's the power of actually learning and using. Again, I'm not the scientist, so I don't have the exact science behind it, but I personally can speak of my own experience that when I learn something and get some information into my brain and then get my hands, that sense of, touch, feel, put something together and translate what you've learned into more practical outcome, it works a lot with me. That's where the knowledge actually gets a lot more fixed, if that's the right word. And then I could be able to translate it into more day-to-day use. And I believe that's what I heard you say about the power of apprenticeship and for you to remember back in the school days building that robot. Clearly, it left a very positive
exactly.
mark.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So we talk a lot about apprenticeship, and you both tapped into the apprenticeship sphere and carried it over in career as well. I'm going to stay with you, Vic, because I personally know that you've won the Emerging Talent from the International Quality Awards at a young age, and you also became a chartered quality member and a chartered quality professional at a young age early in your career. Can you talk to us about that journey, what it meant, how did you get there, and just shed some more light on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when people generally ask me for kind of what's one bit of advice, and I always say, don't be defined by your age. It's not the number of years of experience that you've got, it's what you've done with it. If you've done the same thing for a long period of time, you are well experienced in that. If you've done lots of different things at a good depth over a period of time, then you've got lots more experience. And I've done a lot in quite a short period of time. And, it was ultimately the experience that I got in doing my apprenticeship that's got me to where I am today. So my apprenticeship was designed to give me a good breadth and depth across the profession map. So, whilst still working on the skills in leadership, but also giving myself the context of my organisation and doing real targeted activities and experiences across governance, assurance, and improvement, meant I had this holistic experience, which ultimately contributed to me being able to pass the assessment for chartership. This is so important when organisations are designing a quality apprenticeship, because you can quite easily design one for, I need a specific role to do this specific thing. For quality professionals, it's completely different. We need that strong breadth and depth across the profession map. That's what my apprenticeship did, and these are the benefits that I'm personally reaping now. Again, it was that really took me into the trustee role as well. So it was Ian McCabe who designed the quality apprenticeship at Nuvia. I know you know Ian, he's been on the board of trustees himself, and he did mentor me throughout my apprenticeship. And I remember him giving me a ring saying, the trustee applications are open. Have you thought about it? And I thought, way too young, way too inexperienced compared to all the rest. And that's where I have to really challenge my mindset. And when I actually went through the criteria and kind of did my own little assessment and scored myself, I thought, you know what, I could actually have quite a good go at this. And I went through the assessment as everybody else does, and I was very fortunate to have been offered the role. And the challenges and the doubts come sometimes externally, but we just manage those, but also a lot from within, which I know we talk about in our one-to-ones. It's very easy for me to look at myself and say, well, I'm not a quality director with 35 years experience, but that's not my position on the board. The board really values the diversity of experience, people's backgrounds, what they've done with their time. And for me, that's what I bring to the board. They're not looking for that from me as they would from somebody else who's got that background. And that's really the value. There's a lot of research that shows that diverse boards are more effective boards, and it is that diversity of thought which I think I will say this, but we've actually seemed to have nailed that, I would say, when you look at the way the board is currently formed. But yeah, it was definitely designing the apprenticeship to have all that experience across the profession map that really got to where I am. And it kept me focused as a quality professional because, yes, I applied my role to the context of the nuclear and construction industries, but I'd never, ever put that above what do I need to know as a quality professional in governance, assurance, improvement, leadership and context.
There are a few things I would like to pick up from some of the conversation as well. One thing is totally agree that it's very easy for us as humans to sometimes be our own blockers. Sometimes we need to actually challenge, as you said, that thought process and identify what is it that I can bring to the table rather than what is it that I think people might expect of me to bring to the table. That's a long-winded statement, but I hope you understand what I mean, that we are trying to block ourselves because of some perceptions that we've sort of had and lived with for a while. What I like about what you've also identified is that the apprenticeship program has kept you in focus. I talked to so many quality professionals, and I believe some of the listeners would agree with that as well, that many quality professionals get into quality by accident. And what you've explained, both of you, is that this was not an accident. This was actually a thought through process based on some early insights that you've got, that you've identified this is an area that aligns with you and you want to be able to help. And what the apprenticeship program helped is drive that focus in the areas of quality, governance, assurance, and improvement. So that's really so lovely to hear and so refreshing to bring that different insight, especially that people understand, hopefully could identify different opportunities to tap into apprenticeships in today's world. The awards began in 2017, and the number of applicants is always very high competing grounds for each award, even though you yourself as an applicant might not be privy to this level of competition. But talk us through that award, that application, and how did it feel to go onto that stage and hold that award?
Oh, it was like the lottery. Don't get me wrong, I would love to win the lottery, but I always describe the International Quality Awards and Quality Live as Christmas for quality professionals. It really is such a warm, celebratory feeling when we're all there together in our community, and the International Quality Awards does blow me away every single year because we see so much of the profession that just naturally in my role I'm not exposed to on a day-to-day basis. So it's lovely. But my kind of journey with the Quality Awards was not successful at the start. I applied in 2018 and I was rejected straight away. And that was for a very good reason. That's because I was not ready. I think deep down I kind of knew that. But that was probably the reason why I was successful the year after, because I took myself through that application first and it really showed me what I needed to do to get myself ready for next year. A gap analysis, so to speak, if we're talking quality. So then it really kind of lit a fire under me for 2019. And I thought, well, this is actually quite special as well because it was the centenary celebration. And I really kind of crafted what I needed to do in terms of experience and also evidence and results to support my application for 2019. And that was also the year that I finished my apprenticeship. And I think to have that together was really quite special for me because it was that I've really done this and I've also been able to share this with my profession. And on the back of that, there was so much celebration, there was so much interest. I think I went around, I want to say, 15 organisations sharing my story, but also advising them on how they could craft their own quality apprenticeship. The Ministry of Defence came in to see us. Cavendish at the time came in to see us, and lots of other organisations did. So it was so special. And what I say to people now, going through the application process has equal value to being a finalist or a winner, because it tells you so much about yourself and it shows you your route forward, because the feedback the judges give is really brilliant. It's very personal as well.
Fantastic. And once again, congratulations. Even though it's 2019, I
Thank
know
you.
it's a great achievement. And for all of our listeners, if you are not familiar with the International Quality Award, you can head to the CQI's website, quality.org, and find all about the categories that are available in the award ceremony itself and how you can apply and participate. Bringing the conversation back to apprenticeship, Sam, from your experience, what challenges did you experience or should people be aware of when going down the route of apprenticeships?
There's a lot of challenges, really, Rashad, and it's all to do with how apprenticeships are set up. Their big advantages are also some sort of challenges that everyone's got to overcome. So when you look at the blended sort of learning that you get on an apprenticeship, whilst it's brilliant and it teaches you an awful lot of things, and you get to put those things into practice straight away, a blended learning environment is completely different. You know, traditionally you learn in classrooms and you sort of document everything and you learn lots of different things that way. But when you get into the working world, obviously you try to put it into practice. An apprenticeship combines those two. So it's quite hard to do that because you're trying to learn lots of things academically whilst putting them into practice in your hands-on role. And you've got to be able to manage that time and manage that, I suppose, a bit of pressure that's on you to really do all those things. So I found time management was quite difficult, but equally there's a lot of people that support you through that. So you'll have like apprentice supervisors, for example, you get mentors, and they really help you understand what the challenges are in terms of blended learning and how to overcome them and how to structure your time better so that you get the maximum benefit out of your apprenticeship. And I think one of the other things that I really found in my apprenticeship that was a challenge was seeing the bigger picture. I finished school, I moved straight into this apprenticeship. Like I say, I lacked a bit of confidence maybe, and knew that I wanted to do something hands-on, wasn't 100% sure what that was. And I started my apprenticeship. And as much as it was fantastic, that apprenticeship was 4 years long, which when you're just leaving school to move on to something that's 4 years is quite a big chunk of time. And it was quite hard at the time when I first started in the first few weeks to understand where it was all going, what was the end point for me. And really, I suppose the way I got around that was look at the way that the apprenticeship's structured, look at what I want to learn, and then really just look at myself, where do I want to be in 4 years' time, and how do I use this apprenticeship as a tool to get there? And that's what I did, really. And it's worked out pretty well for me so far. So yeah, I definitely think that those are challenges, but once you overcome them, they become massive advantages.
And you've had the support, as you've mentioned, whether it's the apprenticeship supervisor or mentors you get buddied up with as well to guide you through the process. Was there, my understanding is when you go through an apprentice, you're actually also going through the actual job. So there's an expectation of a certain level of performance that you have to fulfill while learning all of the ins and outs of, in this instance, quality. So governance, assurance, and improvement. Were the expectations calibrated in the business as you were going through your job and the apprenticeship, or did you encounter some mismatches sometimes? And if you did, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, and I think in terms of my apprenticeship at Sulzer, it was pretty well balanced, really. And that's because Sulzer have a long history of employing apprentices, usually somewhere between 10 and 15 a year. They used to have their own apprentice school on site where the apprentices spend all their time sort of learning. And because of that, we've built a culture that really focuses around apprentices. And for that reason, the expectations of me as an apprentice was really to get in there and learn as much as possible. And as long as I was learning and developing, then everyone was happy with that. But equally, I think that it's important that Sulzer had a good structure for me to follow, so that whilst I was learning, I was really focusing on the end goal of where I wanted to get to. I think anyone considering an apprenticeship needs to be mindful that whilst you're at work, although you are an apprentice, there's obviously some expectations of you, but equally employers of apprentices need to remember that apprentices are there to learn as much as possible and then be fantastic into their roles there onwards. So you've got to find this blended approach of expectations are constantly developing as your apprentices are developing as well.
The blended approach is not only on the learning style, but it's also on expectations to help you put the effort in, you get the reward in the end. And that's not just the apprenticee, but that's also the organization supporting the apprenticeship. They put the effort in, they get the reward in the end. So those two major challenges, time and the long side vision, sort of knowing what's the end goal going to look like. Vic, from your experience, what advice would you give organizations who want to set up apprenticeships and encourage that blended learning and cultivating talent from the start?
So just picking up actually something that Sam just mentioned then is make sure that you are employing an apprentice for the right reasons. Apprentices are not there to make tea and coffee. They're not there to do the printing. They are not admin support. They are there to be developed into your organization's future leaders and technical experts. And that was something that was at the heart of my apprenticeship. And I'm hoping, Sam, you experienced something similar, because that's really what made the difference. I've seen examples of both, and the outcome is as you could imagine. So in terms of advice for organizations, there is a lot more out there in terms of support than there was when I did mine. So my apprenticeship relied on somebody having a vision for wanting to do something new and really designing that. Now there's a quality apprenticeship standard, there's funding, there is support from the CQI, there's lots more resources, so please do embrace that and go for that. There are signposts on the CQI website to that sort of thing, but also on the CQI mentoring platform, there is a lot of mentors on there who've done quality apprenticeships or hosted quality apprenticeships, and you can see that on their profile. So you can reach out to that there for something less formal. Also, design the experience. So, for example, when I was doing my apprenticeship, if I knew that I had a module coming up on 5S, I wouldn't just do the module and tick it off. Nuvia made an environment for me to say, right, Vic's got 5S coming up next month. Let's give her a real life example of where she can go and do a 5S and apply that learning. So please do design that in mind. Don't just leave the apprenticeship up, the apprenticeship bit up to the training organisation. Make sure that you work that in. In terms of advice for apprentices, don't be scared. If it doesn't work, you can always do something else. There's lots of pressure to timescales, and yes, 4 years is a long investment, but it is also a really rich experience. And there's a lot more quality apprenticeships out there, particularly in nuclear and construction, but obviously I am biased there. I know there is in other sectors as well. If you wanted to research quality first before you went into an apprenticeship like that again, there's lots on the CQI website, but I'm sure if you reached out to a quality professional that's available through the CQI, you will get all the information that you need. There is some content on STEM as well around quality, which is something that we've been pushing quite hard for as a profession.
But something you've mentioned early on is the quality apprenticeship, and in fact, the quality profession in general is in a unique place because you get a visibility of so many departmental work in an organization. And that by itself bring that diversity. So if somebody started a quality apprenticeship and they got visibility over the different departments and they found themselves better suited in a different discipline, then that is also a win.
Absolutely. And I've seen it before. So when I did my apprenticeship, we got in touch with the Sellafield apprenticeships as well. And essentially what we'd all done is we'd all done a bit of a stint in different functions in a business. I know some that moved into accountancy. I know some that moved into engineering. For me, I enjoyed the blend. So obviously quality was absolutely right for me, but it does give you that flavour. And any organisation that's bought into your development as a person will embrace you wanting to pursue a different function within the organisation. And that is something for organisations to think about as well. Are you going to support a role, or are you going to support a developing person who will help your organisation succeed?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Vic. And when I look at my own career in terms of, the industry supporting me and my employer Sulzer supporting me, I started as an apprentice mechanical fitter, did a 4-year apprenticeship in that. I then did a second apprenticeship in management and leadership, and now I'm doing my third apprenticeship in materials technology. And what that has really taught me is that Sulzer didn't take me on as an apprentice. They took me on as an individual and somebody they saw potential in. And I agree that I think all employers looking at apprentices need to employ on that basis. Don't look at them as an apprentice. Look at them as the future of your business, of your organisation, and really support that in the future. Because as you were saying, whatever you do your apprenticeship in, you gain lots of skills and experience that are transferable to any other role or any other industry. And I think we all need to focus on that. And ultimately, there's no sort of limit on where you can go. Just because you're a manufacturing apprentice doesn't mean it stops there. And I think that's why looking at the quality apprenticeship, it's so brilliant, because all the skills that we use as quality professionals in terms of problem solving and doing the right thing, being the quality conscience, etc., they're all applicable to everything we all do within our working lives. So I think a quality apprenticeship really will give people a fantastic start to a long-lived career.
Sam and Vic, thank you so much. I'm just going to squeeze in one last question, if I may. If every leader around the world had started their career with an apprenticeship, what do you think the leadership culture would look like today?
I think if everyone started with an apprenticeship, I think every industry and every individual would have a real deep understanding for what their industry is. And I mean on a cultural level, understanding why we do what we do and why we've got to do it right. And equally, I think because of that, we'd have a real appreciation for mentorship, for continuous development and improvement, whilst also getting some leaders that are so focused on doing the right thing. The working world would just be a brilliant place for us all to be.
So for me, it would be very human. I think traditionally in organisations, we've almost been to work like robots. And I think COVID forced that out of a lot of us, because we had to become a lot more appreciative of people's personal circumstances. And we see that a lot more today. But to go through an apprenticeship, as you've said, Sam, it's that real development of not just your technical skills in the workplace, but also your personal skills, professional skills, how you can bring the best out of yourself. So I do think that the impact would be a lot more appreciative of people's strengths and weaknesses and how best to develop people, because ultimately an organisation is its people. So why not focus on bringing the best out of them?
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your insights and for this brilliant conversation. Time has flown by. Thank you, Victoria Derbyshire and Sam Boniface, for joining the episode of Quality Impact, exploring the world of apprenticeships. Thanks to our producer, Luke Nixon. I've been your host, Rashad Issa. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe, follow, share, and leave us a review. See you next month.